The moment whispers turned into outrage, everything changed, because this wasn't just another celebrity visit. This was a full-blown collision between image, money, and a public that suddenly said enough. Meghan Markle isn't just facing criticism, she's walking straight into a storm she may have underestimated. And what happened next? It only made things louder, messier, and impossible to ignore. It begins with a spark, almost quiet at first, but carrying a tension that feels like it was waiting to explode. Meghan Markle reportedly furious, snapping at Australians who dared to question her presence. Not politely, not subtly. Snapped. And right there, the tone shifts, because this is no longer about a visit. It's about control, perception, and a growing resistance that refuses to stay silent.
Tone of their response about this particular petition, it reeks of animosity. And you understand why the pair are polling so poorly globally. I mean, it just sounded so bitter. Stay home with your kids. It doesn't sound like Australia wants you.
And yet, critics couldn't help but notice a pattern that feels almost too consistent to be coincidence. Where there is attention, where there is opportunity, where there is money, she appears. And this time, even with thousands of signatures stacking up against her, she isn't stepping back, she's stepping forward. That's what makes this so unsettling, because instead of retreating, she responds. And that response, it didn't calm anything, it ignited everything. Suddenly, people aren't just talking, they're questioning motives, timing, and intentions all at once.
A spokesperson for the Duke and Duchess has said, and this is where I don't think they're quite picking up what we're putting down, said, quote, "It's a moot point. The trip is being funded privately, so I'm not sure what this petition hopes to achieve."
April arrives, and with it, the plan becomes clearer. Meghan preparing for Australia, not for charity, not for diplomacy, but for something far more personal, far more calculated, a wellness event hosted by a friend, framed as empowerment, packaged as inspiration. But underneath, critics are already circling, asking, is this really about wellness, or is it about something else entirely?
One of the speakers that will be joining us in person on the weekend, I am beside myself about, because I have admired this woman and what she has endured, how she's risen above it, and how she has demonstrated how a woman can be pushed down and she can still rise. And that person is Meghan, Duchess of Sussex.
Because here's where things get uncomfortable. The price tags. Thousands of dollars, not for transformation, not for guaranteed insight, but for access, for proximity, for a photo, a moment, a chance to stand near Meghan Markle. And suddenly, the narrative cracks open. People begin to whisper, is this genuine inspiration, or is it exclusivity dressed up as empowerment? The kind of exclusivity that quietly filters out the very people who might actually need wellness the most. But Meghan, she doesn't flinch. Not publicly. In fact, this event starts to look like something bigger, almost like a reset button, a chance to rebuild relevance, to generate income, to reclaim a spotlight that hasn't been shining quite as brightly lately. And maybe that's the real story here, not the event itself, but the timing of it.
But the issue you've got, as I intimated earlier, the couple need money, Caleb. They do have a few $1 million in the bank, but they're getting through the cash very quickly. They've got security costs, they've got a mortgage on that Montecito mansion, and the income is diminishing.
Because while she prepares to arrive, Australia pushes back. Hard. Not with silence, but with signatures. A petition rising quickly, fueled not just by dislike, but by concern. Real concern. Citizens asking why, in a time of financial pressure, even the possibility of public resources being used for this visit feels wrong. And suddenly, it's not just Meghan under scrutiny, it's the entire system around her visit.
That 36,000 brave souls, and I'm proud to say, as a patriotic Australian souls, have signed a petition calling for Harry and Meghan's tour of Australia to be deprived of all public funding.
At first, it's dismissed, brushed aside like background noise, just another online outrage that will fade in a few days. But it doesn't fade. It grows, faster than expected, louder than anticipated. And that's when everything shifts, because now it's not just noise, it's momentum. And with that momentum comes pressure, real pressure, the kind that forces a response. And when Meghan responds, she insists this is private, completely private, no government funding, no taxpayer involvement, nothing official official. But here's the twist that keeps people talking. Why did that clarification only come after the backlash? Why not before? Why wait until the pressure builds?
Prince Harry and Meghan Markle have criticised an online petition ahead of their trip to Australia next month. More than 35,000 people have signed the form saying security and logistics for the pair's tour should not be taxpayer funded. A spokesperson for the Duke and Duchess of Sussex responded saying the trip is being privately funded.
Then comes the comment that makes everything spiral. The petition? Pointless. That's the claim. Because only a fraction signed it, the rest must support her. That logic hits like a spark in dry grass. Because people don't see reassurance, they see dismissal. They see a disconnect. And suddenly, it's not just about whether she should visit, it's about whether she understands the people she's walking into. And underneath all of this, something deeper begins to form. A pattern of contradiction. A private visit with very public consequences. A wellness retreat surrounded by unrest, a message of empowerment clashing with public frustration. Each piece on its own seems small, but together, they start to look like something much bigger. And just when it feels like the story couldn't get more complicated, more details begin to surface. Old memories, old tours, old expectations, and questions that refuse to stay buried. Because what makes this situation even more explosive isn't just what's happening now, it's what happened before and how those memories are colliding with the present in a way that feels almost uncomfortable to ignore. Australians remember 2018. They remember the energy, the excitement, the royal glow that surrounded Prince Harry and Meghan Markle when they arrived as working royals. Back then, everything was different. They were welcomed, celebrated, escorted, protected, police, security, official accommodations, all of it funded, all of it justified, because they represented something bigger than themselves. And for a moment, the country embraced them completely. Crowds gathered, cameras flashed, the connection felt real. But now those same images feel like ghosts of a different story because the roles have changed, the titles have shifted, and the expectations, they no longer align. And that's where the tension thickens. Because critics aren't just reacting to a visit, they're reacting to the possibility of history repeating itself under completely different circumstances. The fear isn't loud at first, but it spreads quietly through conversations, through comments, through that growing petition. What if this turns into another royal-style reception? What if, despite stepping away from royal duties, the same level of treatment quietly returns? And if it does, who pays for it? That question sits at the center of everything, unanswered, unresolved, and dangerously open. Because security, this is where things start to feel even more complicated, almost tangled in contradictions. Harry is still fighting legal battles over protection. His security status has already been challenged, questioned, reduced. Courts have ruled, decisions have been made. And yet, here comes this visit, raising the same issue all over again, but in a different country, under a different system. And suddenly, Australians are asking if his security is still considered necessary. Who handles it here? Who funds it? Who takes responsibility if something goes wrong? No one is giving a clear answer. Not officials, not representatives, not anyone with authority. And that silence, it doesn't calm people. It fuels them. Because silence in situations like this doesn't feel neutral, it feels suspicious. And while those questions grow louder, the event itself begins to unravel under scrutiny. A luxury wellness retreat, limited guests, high prices, exclusive access. On paper, it sounds polished, controlled, carefully curated, but then whispers start slipping through. The venue, the preparation, the readiness, or rather, the lack of it. Reports suggesting unfinished areas, a pool not fully complete, facilities still under construction, details that feel small on their own, but together they paint a picture that doesn't quite match the polished image being sold. And then it gets stranger. Environmental concerns, beach conditions, unpleasant realities creeping into what was supposed to be a perfect escape. And suddenly, the question changes again. Not just why is she going, but what exactly is she walking into? Because the contrast becomes impossible to ignore. Thousands of dollars for an experience that might not even be fully ready. Guests paying premium prices, possibly stepping into something incomplete, imperfect, even chaotic behind the scenes. And that contradiction, it sticks, it lingers. It makes people wonder whether the entire event is more about appearance than substance. But here's the part that refuses to settle. Despite everything, the backlash, the petition, the questions, the criticism, Meghan doesn't cancel. She doesn't pause. She doesn't step back. She confirms she's still going. And that decision, it speaks louder than any statement, because to observers, it suggests something deeper, something more urgent. The need to show up, the need to maintain visibility, the need to follow through, no matter how loud the resistance becomes. And that's where the narrative sharpens into something almost uncomfortable. uncomfortable because it starts to feel less like a choice and more like a necessity. And once that idea enters the conversation, it changes everything because now people aren't just questioning the visit, they're questioning the reasons behind it. Is this about defending her image, reclaiming relevance, securing financial stability? Or is it something even more complex, something that hasn't fully revealed itself yet? Each theory adds another layer. Each layer adds more tension. And the truth, it becomes harder to see clearly, buried under speculation, reactions, and contradictions that don't quite line up. Because at its core, this isn't just about Australia. It isn't just about a petition. It isn't even just about Meghan Markle. It's about perception versus reality, public image versus private intention, and the thin, fragile line that separates the two. Every statement, every response, every decision, it all feeds into that divide. And the more it unfolds, the harder it becomes to tell which side is real. So now the situation hangs in this strange, unresolved space. A visit still planned, a public still divided, questions still unanswered, and attention that hasn't faded. In fact, it's only grown stronger, sharper, more unpredictable. Because the moment she steps into Australia, this story won't end. It will evolve. It will shift. And whatever happens next won't just be watched. It will be judged, dissected, and remembered. And maybe that's the most unsettling part of all, because this story isn't closing. It's opening.